Well, hello, everyone. Welcome this week to the Storied Coaching Podcast. I've decided that we're going to do something a little bit different today. It's a very specific topic for what I am hearing from colleagues and customers and people that I work with and people in my life that they're experiencing right now. A lot of this has to do with the fact that I'm working a lot with people in the technology industry. And as you know, there have been quite a bit of layoffs, shakeups, people concerned about if their current job is going to continue next week or if they need to be worried about it and looking at other things. And I would say that the feedback I'm getting a lot and that I want to talk about today and give you some frameworks for that will be helpful for you if you're feeling this, specifically if you're feeling anxiety and you're feeling worry. That's what I want to talk about today. Now, as a life and a business coach, this is something I have a tool set for that doesn't always come up when I'm working in corporate situations because we're very focused on a result outcome as far as looking better on camera, selling on camera, working with buyer enablement teams, customer support teams in order to get a very tangible training objective done. And I want to talk about things like anxiety and about stress in the workplace as well, because this is something that we all experience. And if this is something that you're experiencing right now, that you have been recently riffed, as they say, or graduated, as one of my colleagues last week on the podcast said, if you've been graduated to another company, maybe you did not realize you would be graduated. And so you're in the job market and you're looking actively right now, or perhaps you are still in role, but you've seen other colleagues be shown the door, and that doesn't feel the best for you, especially if you're in a supervisor role. And so you have some worry and anxiety going on for them, as well as if your job is secure. And there is a specific framework that I use because of the fact that I deal with anxiety constantly as well. And I want to talk about this because of the fact that this is a universal human condition. We all feel this from time to time. Some of us, like me, chronically. Most mornings, I am waking up and I'm dealing with anxious thoughts. This is something that I started dealing with in my mid-20s. And as I'm in my 40s now, it's still something that I have a tool set for and that I can address, but it doesn't mean that it's gone away. And I'd like to get rid of some of the stigmas up front that we think about when we think about anxiety, when we think about, is there something wrong with me? Am I broken? I shouldn't be feeling this way. And then we start to double down and beat ourselves up about it as well. And this is not something that we should sweep under the rug and not talk about. Situations like this make it more acute, but it's also something that's just a human part of our experience. And I want to be able to give you some things that have been really helpful to me, that have come to me through my own coaching journey, that I've been able to help other clients with as well, that hopefully you could use a few of these things today. Some of these things might resonate with you. Others you might be able to leave. But hopefully by listening to this short podcast today, you'll take a couple of things that might make you feel better right now, no matter what situation that you're in. Let's help each other. Let's help the fellow humans. So let's say that you are in that situation where you're unsure of your current position or you have just been let go. There's that misnomer that experiencing anxiety, or another word for it is worry, that is a weakness, that's something that you should hide, and that it's something that we shouldn't allow others to see. And I'd like to get rid of that misnomer right away. If you're feeling anxious, there's nothing broken or wrong with you. If you're worrying about things, that's perfectly normal in your daily life or in acute, elevated, heightened situations like you're dealing with right now. Now, here's the framework. I'm going to jump right to it. So whenever I am dealing with something like this, or when I'm helping clients work through this, we use a similar framework. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shorten it to something you might be able to use right now if you're feeling this way. So once you realize that you're feeling anxious, and that's really the first step, is to notice. To not just be going on a default story, as I talk about sometimes. It's such a base level that you don't even realize the way that you're acting. So if you can start to get curious about the fact of like, I have some of these symptoms right now. I'm feeling kind of worried about things, and my energy is kind of all over the place. I'm feeling a bit anxious. There's this pit in the bottom of my stomach. I'm waking up. I'm not sleeping well, that kind of stuff. If you notice some of these signs and you realize you're worrying about things more, you're feeling anxious, that's the first step, is just to get curious about it and to realize that you're feeling it and that there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to try to escape from it. It's okay to just experience it. Something I want you to know about anxiety and worry, and really any emotion that you can feel that you would label good or bad, they can't hurt you. Experiencing them and working through them is the fastest way to get to the other side of it if it's something that you are not enjoying the experience of. Here's the thing. The more you fight against anxiety, the more heightened it becomes. And I know this from years and years of practical experience. So the first thing that I do is I get curious about it. I'm like, oh, I'm anxious right now. I have felt this way before. I know I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling worried. What am I worried about? And I need it to not be something nebulous. I really force myself to get out a piece of paper and to write down, and it might take a couple tries, what is the sentence in my brain right now? That like kernel of a story that's causing that knee-jerk reaction of like, oh my gosh, that's making me feel panicky, worried, anxious, whatever word you want to assign to it, it's causing that feeling that you really don't like. That's that vibration in your body. What is it? What sentence is it? Is it, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job? Is it, oh my gosh, I just lost my job? Is it, what is it? Like, write it down, no matter how much it makes you feel a certain way. Just write it down, whatever it is, in black and white. That sentence itself, just realize that's just a thought. It is a thought. It's usually a worry about something that's going to happen. I'm afraid the money will run out. That might be if you've lost a job, or if you are worried about that your job might be eliminated, that might be it. It might be something similar to that, like, what about my family? Or what will people think? What is that actual sentence that's causing you to feel anxiety? You'll know it when you hit on it, because it will it will feel a little bit worse once you push the red shiny button on your body. Now, once you've gotten curious about it and you've identified like, okay, it's that sentence, it's absolutely that sentence, then I want you to think about like, okay, what would happen? Like, if that did happen, if I did lose my job or the money did run out, what would you do? What have you done in the past? Start to think through like, okay, if this thing happens, like what could happen and what could not happen? And really think through it logically. Don't allow that thought to just keep circling and not have some sort of resolution that it's moving towards. And I'd like you to be aware of and on the lookout for what I call shame barnacles. So, barnacles attach themselves, if you've ever been near an ocean, they attach themselves to rocks and to oysters and to sea creatures as well. And they can cause drag. It's like they attach themselves onto things. And I want you to look out for any smaller emotions or any kind of derivative emotions that might be attached to your anxiety. Is there any shame attached to it? If you have recently been a victim of a reduction in force, victim is kind of a charged word, but for our purposes, if you've had a reduction in force, if you've been laid off, if you lost your job, any of those terms, are you attaching shame to it, that there's something wrong with you because that happened? That's not helpful. It's not. You don't need to feel shame about that. People lose jobs. People have reductions in force. People get graduated to other jobs. The shame doesn't belong there because of the fact that you lost your job, or that you're worried about something, or that you feel like this is showing you, if you're feeling anxious, that somehow shows that you have weakness. It's not useful for you to have those barnacles, because they just make it worse, don't they? They just make it so much worse. It's like you're beating yourself up when you're already on the ground. It's not productive, and it's not going to help you feel less anxious. And remember, that's what I want to do right now is I just want to help you identify these things so you can work through the anxiety, not run away from it, but work through it as cleanly as possible to get to the other side of it. Let's keep the duration as short as possible so that you can move on. So once you've gotten curious about it and you've removed the shame barnacles or like thoughts of like this is weakness or anything like that, that's not helpful, just makes it worse. Then I want you to frame it like I talked about. Like, okay, what would happen? Like what are some things that I could do next? If I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling this way, it kind of keeps me, Aaron, in a state of just kind of circling and swirling on that thought, and I don't take action from it. Like things that could move me out of anxiety, I tend to just kind of like, you know how sometimes you want to get into a little ball and you're just like, if I just stay here. It's like you're kind of like using your anxiety or your worry as a wubby, as a soft blanket that you're just kind of cuddling up with. Probably not the most productive thing to do. So you want to go ahead and frame it as, all right, if I'm feeling this way right now, how do I want to get out of it? Is there a new sentence or a new thought that I could use instead? If I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job, or I'm afraid the money will run out, let's use that one. Is there a new sentence or a thought that you could replace that with instead that would feel a bit better to think, that helps you take action instead of staying in that anxious state? That really helps me. So if I'm like, hey, the money's going to run out, I start to think of, okay, I've been in situations like this before. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a contractor. I've gotten lots of different jobs. I've been in lots of different situations. It's always worked out. I always figure it out. I'm extremely smart. I can figure this out. This will work out. Those thoughts already, I can feel it in my body right now. Those thoughts, rather than the money will run out, I'm smart and I can figure this out. Two very different thoughts. One of them is going to cause me less anxiety. One's going to cause me obviously more anxiety. But also think about it. One's way more productive as far as me taking action rather than staying stagnant and kind of wallowing in that anxiety. So moving through anxiety almost so that you can look at there's something on the other side of it that's more beneficial to you. Yes. This has happened. I'm moving through it. I'm feeling anxious and I'm worried about it right now. Perfectly human reaction to this situation. I don't need to get rid of it. I don't need to hide it. I don't need to feel bad about it. Of course, I feel anxious right now. Hi, anxiety. I felt you before. You didn't kill me yet. You're not going to kill me this time either. What are some things that I could think about once I've identified that thought of what's making me anxious? What could I think instead that would cause me to take some action that I would feel would be more positive and get me a better result rather than sitting here and feeling anxious? So I want to leave that with you today. This is a bit more on the stress management, wellness side of things, which I really want to do more of as we're moving through, not just this time, but just to have this conversation be open. This isn't something I want to hide, or that I think that in corporate America, especially, that we shouldn't be talking about. We should be talking about it more so that it becomes normal and human. And those shame barnacles and those different things that get attached to it, weakness, things like that, just dragging them out into the light is what gets rid of them. In fact, we are going to be opening up a new community in the next several weeks that many of you will be getting an invitation to, and the rest of you will be invited to join as well. It's going to be a free community, storied coaching community. If you've been a past student in one of our coaching programs or trainings, you will be invited. There's also going to be some cool stuff in there for you, specifically if you've been through those specific trainings. But we're also going to have a section that's just for topics like this, where we're going to have once or twice a month, we're going to have live webinars or events or workshops where we come and we learn about things like this, and we can kind of come together as a community to work through things like this and to support each other. So I hope that you will be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, if you are in one of these situations, whether you're in the tech industry or somewhere else, or it's a completely different situation, not just work related, where you're feeling anxious or worry, and it's happening more and more often, or it's something that you're struggling with right now, I want you to know that it's human, that it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you, but there are tools available to help you process it and move through it. So one more time, that framework is first, just notice it and name it. I'm feeling anxious right now. You might even say it out loud. Detach any shame from the fact that you are feeling anxious. It is a human emotion. All of us feel it at some time or another. Some of us more acutely than others. Like I said, I deal with it constantly. It's chronic for me. Frame it. Try to identify what that sentence is that's swirling around and on repeat, like a bad skipping record in your brain. Identify it. See if there's something that you might want to replace it with, that you might be able to believe that moves you into more positive action and helps you move through that anxiety to get to a feeling state that you are enjoying and that it's more productive than staying in that anxiety. That works really well for me. I hope some of these things work well for you. Have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you next week.